Day 4 ended off with me leading her out of her pen and into the round pen for the first time. She was definitely nervous, so we didn't do any work in the round pen, just wanted to get her comfortable out there in preparation for Day 5, where we actually did do a session out here. So it was quicker getting her to the round pen today, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you me starting in the round pen with her. I'm going to start with something familiar, which is that flag desensitizing with her. Later on, you'll see me sensitize with the flag, but for right now, just getting her relaxed and her feet still. I'm also working on touching those hind legs. Again, always do it with a tool before my hand and my body is that close. I'm also going to introduce the surcingle today. I did introduce her to a rope around her belly, just her girth area, not flank roping or anything, but putting it around her belly, pulling it from the other side underneath, and then kind of just tightening it while she's standing still and walking around. I feel like I'm pretty safe with a rope, and it's probably the easiest thing that I can use initially. And then I go ahead and introduce the surcingle with tossing it over each side a lot, waiting for that relaxation sign and just getting her used to the feeling and the noise of it, because it does make a little bit of a metal noise just because of the rings on it. I do everything on both sides of the horse, making sure that she's comfortable, and also it's just good practice for her offside. I do these little like clarity walks as I'm working with them, which is basically I stop either desensitizing, sensitizing, whatever I'm doing, and let them walk a lap to unstick their feet. It's really good for horses, especially the ones that freeze up. Letting her move with the feeling of it on her. This is also a good way to determine how she feels about stuff kind of dangling around her legs. And I don't mind when things fall off of them. I like to see their reaction, because some Mustangs get a little defensive and they want to kind of go after what falls off of them, which could be something she does. I'd rather she move away like she does right there. And I'm going to go ahead and comfort her so she doesn't feel super nervous about it. Now, the other reason it's a good idea to keep your horse moving forward when something falls off, not necessarily running away from it, but moving forward, is because if you're dragging something off them and it catches their eye on the ground, you don't want them to kind of stop and spook. You want them to keep going along at a calm cadence. So right here, I've just cinched her up for the first time with an object on her, the surcingle, so I'm wanting her to go out. That way if she does decide to spook and kind of react to the fact that there is girth pressure and something on her, both things that we have done separately, that she doesn't do it where I'm standing. She goes any other direction. But watching my body language back, I could have been a little bit clearer with my cues that we've prepped for as far as sending her out. I've never really used the tail end of the lead rope before to add energy, so I probably should have been holding a stick, and I should have been clearer with my directional hand that's closer to the head where I point out. It kind of looked like to her like I was asking her to yield her hindquarters, so she was getting a little unsure. When she did go out, though, I yielded her hindquarters and then comforted her. So for the other direction and continuing to work on this direction, I went and got the flag so I could be a little bit clearer with my cues here and maybe help get that forward energy. The other thing I do is the first time that they wear something, I do make sure they go walk, trot, canter. She's actually better at picking up the canter than most Mustangs initially. I will say that. She's, of course, not super sensitive and light to the cue, but a lot of them you really have to sequence your cues and reward for any try at the canter. She's fairly light to go into it and not in like a spastic way. So just really quick, I'll just show her going walk, trot, canter. There's no major drama here with any of that. Just some confusion, and you can see she kind of trots out on a straight line, hits the end of the rope, and comes back in towards me. That's me being super quiet with my cues so I don't confuse her and kind of letting her make the mistake so she can learn that when my body is kind of in that driving position, I want her to keep going forward. Every time I take something off a horse, so even if it's a saddle pad, probably for the first 5 to 10 times I tack them up. When I'm done working them, I go back up to them with the object and either lay it over their back or rub it on them, just so they don't associate that with work and negativity, especially if the first few times they wear it, they're a little anxious. Now right here, this wasn't even necessarily an intentional training session, and I don't love how much I am pulling on her head here. However, I do release every time she leans forward and shifts one of her feet forward. I was just walking up to grab something and she was being resistant, so I decided that this was what we were going to work on now. This gives a good example of how she feels about things being underneath her feet and moving. Again, just something that I know I'm really going to have to work on with her. So I'll ask her a couple times just to step up to it and hang out on it. Again, anytime that flag moves, she really jumps out of the way. However, I'd like to see that her response is moving away from it, not attacking it anymore. So this was just a little test for me since I noticed she was being a little bit cemented walking up to it. It's a good idea to work on some forward. And you'll notice right after this, when she's kind of being heavy on my hand in the halter, I work on a little bit of body control and sending her forward. So right here, I'm working on sending a little bit, having her go out near it, and yielding that hip. She's got a pretty good hindquarter yield on her. She's very sensitive to my body language regarding that. And I'm going to go ahead and work on moving her shoulder. So for this, I try to tip the nose away with my hand on the head, and then I add that energy to the shoulder, and I'm looking for her to cross in front. So you can see she's moving away from me, but she's crossing behind. Good, and there was an attempt at crossing in front, so I'm going to release. Again, she's moving behind, there was a cross in front, and she gets the release. The reason I want to reward right away, not that she's just moving away from pressure, because she is and doing a really good job at that, but I want her to be thinking forward because this is the start of her pivot or spin under saddle. So again, tip that nose away, energy on the shoulder, wait for the cross in front, good, and release. I did work on a few other things with her, like I worked on some backing up and yielding the hindquarters. Like I said, the hindquarters are kind of boring to watch with her because she's pretty darn good at it. And the other thing I introduced was flexing. So right here, she's kind of worried about the flag on the ground, so she's going to keep backing up. And my releases are a little bit funky with the lead rope there. I think it's because I was giving her some grace to move away from the objects. But I'm going to flex her. She does have some difficulty understanding the flex to the left. The flex to the right is pretty easy, but to the left, she's constantly thinking about moving her hindquarters. I left that part in because we've already worked with the saddle pad and I walked up to grab it, and you can see her reaction just from me grabbing it there. So instantly I went into her following the scary object rather than me bringing it up to her for her to necessarily get flooded with me rubbing it on her. As soon as she did follow it though and got more comfortable, I went ahead and put it up on her back. This is what I was talking about before too, when it slides off of her. It's not too big of a deal for me. I actually like it. I like to see their reaction. And I always make sure that I'm far enough away from them that if it slides off to the outside, they're not going to run me over. Good. And then when I send her out going the other way, the pad actually stayed balanced on her for too long. Like I probably had her go around 20 laps trotting, and I was like, okay, maybe she's too balanced. The pad isn't moving at all. So I yielded her hindquarters in and I took it off myself for her. You can see she's a little sketched out, that big lean back. I'm gonna come in and comfort her. I like that she didn't try to strike at it or use her front legs. And then I'll bring the scary object back up to her and just toss it back on. I'm feeling pretty good about the session we just had. I don't think I got it on video, but I did put my English saddle on her. I didn't cinch it up, but I did get her used to like just desensitizing on the sides and then tossing it over on each side and walking her around with it on. Soon I'd like to work on teaching her how to tie, maybe introduce a riding horse, so maybe either later today or tomorrow I'll ride Lynx around in the round pen with her in there and maybe see if she'll pony behind him. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not the best at ponying, but I really liked her responses. And, oh, that was the other thing. I think her biggest downfall is things on the ground that when she steps on they move. Honestly, just things on the ground in general. She gets really spooked over that. I haven't decided yet if I want to do like positive reinforcement to work on that or mark training. I started with mark training today and it seemed to make a little bit of progress. One session is hard to tell if progress was made with it. Honestly, I only worked on it for like 5 or 10 minutes, but I think mark training might really help her get over that fear
and I know it's still early on, so I'm not super stressed or worried about it, but I am a little nervous if something on the ground moves and, you know, she might bump into me or try to go the other way. I think she has enough body control where as long as she was able to move away from the object, she would come back to me, but you never really know. So we have a lot to work on, but I thought today's session was really good. She was a lot more relaxed in the round pen.
Honestly, one of my biggest struggles with ponying is that Lynx is not trained to be a pony horse, nor do I ever seem to wear the proper shoe attire when I'm doing this, so he's not super in tune to my cues. So I think if I put more time into Lynx and just practicing with him, we would get a lot better. But I was really impressed with how she did. She wasn't scared of him. She was coming right up. I mean, she was a little bit nervous when I was moving her hip around, but I feel like that's to be expected. I'll probably pony her a few more times when we get back to Florida. I don't think I normally voice over the first time that I start laying across them and sitting on them and such, but I have music playing in my pocket and I don't want to get copywritten. But I feel like all of this is pretty self-explanatory. I wasn't planning on doing a first sit on her today, but she's been really good with the desensitizing, jumping up and down and kind of rubbing all over her body, so it kind of just came about. And she did get a little bit of confidence from Lynx being in there. So as you can see, he's just loose in there right now. I'm just kind of letting him stand there with his hind end and just hang out. She's not attached to him or trying to get to him or anything, but I think just the comfort of another horse being in there helps her out some. She was really good for me to get on her. Just ignore everything I'm saying and my face. I like getting on them bareback the first time because I feel like if I really need to, I can slip off the side and get off them way faster if needed. I also feel like I can probably stay on them better, and less equipment is better for me. So what you see me doing here is kind of stupid to leave in, but I'm adjusting my leg position and where my seat is on her.
Wait, were her ears up at all?
Yeah, I got a bunch
of ears up. Can I make my leg look shorter on her?
Why are you so scared of her? She's a good girl.
I've seen when she does the things on the ground.
You're not a thing on the ground though.
Yet.